All right. Whew. I hope I fixed it. Let me know if I fixed it. Many, many apologies, my friends. Like I said, I got a new computer, changed all the settings. My data transfer process wasn't very smooth, um, and might have messed something up in the process. But we're good now. Awesome. Thank you all for joining me. We've got some stuff planned today. We're going to talk about PFL. We're going to talk about ONE FC, UFC, Bellator, the whole 9 yards. We're going to talk about Ben Askren, Jake Paul, and whatever else your little hearts desire. Um, if you know me by now, you know that I like to do these live streams on Wednesdays in the morning. And the reasoning for that is I know it's kind of a weird day. Happy hump day, by the way. I know it's a weird day, but it's the day that my wife is at work, the kids are out of the house, and it's just me and the dogs. So, should be no interruptions, except if FedEx comes knocking at my door, then you might hear my dogs barking, and I'll have to go throw something at them. But in any case, let's fill up this chat room. Let's fill up the chat with questions, and I will answer them for you. Like I tried mentioning on the last live stream that failed miserably, make sure you enter into the UFC 261 fight picking contest. You can go on any one of our social media platforms and make your picks and win some free shit. It's a lot of fun. This morning, Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier 3 just got officially announced by the UFC. And I kind of saw it coming, but a lot of people were worried that it was going to be canceled because those two were talking shit back and forth for the past week or so. And it boiled over to the point where they said that the fight was off. I kind of saw it as a way to, hype the fight, basically. Because right after, in McGregor Poirier 2, McGregor was very nice. They were very respectful of each other. And we all saw how that worked out for Conor. Of course, that wasn't the only thing that played a factor in that fight. But in the first fight between these two, the fact that McGregor got in Poirier's head was a big deal. And it may have had a huge impact on the fight. Poirier seems to think it did. So in their second fight, they were very respectful, and Poirier did a lot better. Now McGregor says no more Mr. Nice Guy, and Poirier seems to be game in the trash talking element. Their Twitter feud back and forth was pretty hilarious. So I think it was all just to hype the fight, basically. I don't think that these two hate each other. I don't know what's going on with the Good Fight Foundation donation, if that is really an issue like they say it was, or if it's something that's fabricated to, create some kind of beef between the two. But I knew these two were going to have a rematch. Conor will not take that loss sitting down. You know what I mean? He wants to get back in there. After the Nate Diaz loss, he was hungry to get in there again against Nate Diaz. So should be an awesome fight. I'm hyped for it. I believe that's International Fight Week, July 10th. So that is probably the pinnacle of all the cards that will be taking place then. And it should be a lot of fun. Before I get into the questions, let's take a look at some of the stuff we got coming up here. I'm actually gonna pop in my little screen here. Let's go on ONE FC. And let's open this bitch up here. All right. Got ONE FC on TNT 2. Christian Lee versus Timothy Nasty Yukin. That's Timothy, not Timothy. I guess that's the Russian way to say my name. But anyway, man, Christian Lee, this is for the lightweight title. Nasty Yukin's the guy that knocked out Eddie Alvarez when he first went over to ONE FC. And Christian Lee, man, he's so good. He's so talented. He's a young guy. I think he's like 20 or 21 years old. He's a freaking world champion. He knocked out Shinya Aoki. He's had a couple good fights with Martin Nguyen, if I'm not mistaken, a former champ. So, yeah, should be fun. Should be a good card. And ONE FC has got a lot of good cards lined up. Lineker fighting. We've got Onlong Sang versus, who is that? Big Dash. Big Dash is his name. I think he's a Dutch fighter. I'm hyped, man. I am hyped for some ONE FC. Should be fun. What else we got going on here? All right, let's start answering some questions here. Yusuf, what is up, my friend? Wonderboy versus Burns prediction. Can Wonderboy cause Usman problems in the future? Well, let's talk about Wonderboy Burns first before we talk about Wonderboy Usman. I don't think that Burns gets a rematch anytime soon against Usman, even if he beats Wonderboy. That's not an easy fight for Wonderboy, man. Gilbert Burns is a murderer on the ground. And Wonderboy, I wouldn't say his weakness is the ground. He's skilled on the ground. He's technically a black belt or a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, and I believe he's related to one of the Machados by marriage. He's related to Chris Weidman by marriage, so he's getting some good training in on the ground, no doubt. But still, I give Gilbert Burns the advantage on the ground. Gilbert Burns' wrestling is excellent. It's really excellent, especially for a jiu-jitsu guy. And he can hold his own on the feet, ladies and gentlemen. So, who wins that fight? As long as it stays standing, Wonderboy should take it. Wonderboy should definitely take it. Gilbert Burns is aggressive. He'll come forward, and Wonderboy will counter him. If Gilbert Burns can get him on his back, now we have a different story. But Wonderboy's takedown defense has been pretty stellar throughout his career. So even though Burns is as good as he is with his wrestling, I don't know if he can get Wonderboy to the ground. So I'm going to pick Wonderboy for that fight. Now, Wonderboy versus Usman. That is another good one. Excuse me. The fact that Burns hurt Usman in the first round of their fight, that kind of changed some things for me, in my opinion of Usman. Usman's got a big fat head. He had a really sturdy chin against Colby Covington. He felt Tyron Woodley's power as well and was unfazed by it. But when Burns dropped him, technically he didn't drop him. He stumbled him. But it was as close to being dropped as you can possibly be. Yeah, man. I don't know. I don't know if he can eat shots from Wonderboy. And it's not that Wonderboy is like a big power puncher or power kicker, but he's sneaky. He's going to sneak those shots in there. He's going to blast him with a lightning fast side kick, hook kick, or, question mark kick. And I don't know if Usman's going to stay standing from it. If Usman was smart, he would wrestle Wonderboy. But we haven't seen him wrestle too much in his past few fights. Maybe he was trying to stay away from the jiu-jitsu of Gilbert Burns. Maybe he was trying to stay away from Colby Covington's wheelhouse, which is wrestling. There was a lot of clinching against Jorge Masvidal. And let's not forget, Usman has to get past Jorge next weekend. So, the Wonderboy Usman fight definitely isn't set in stone. Yeah, if Usman is smart, he'll use his wrestling against Wonderboy. But let's not look past anybody yet. All right, Lucas Acevedo. If you could bring one fighter from any promotion to the UFC, who would it be? I would love to see Douglas Lima. I know a lot of people would pick him just because he's easily one of the most skilled guys in Bellator who has never fought in the UFC. Never, not once. Some of these 1FC guys are really good as well, man. Gary Tonin, I would love to see in the UFC. I would love to gauge his jiu-jitsu against the world-class MMA fighters of the world. And the guys he's fighting in 1FC are very skilled. But at the end of the day, they're B tier. They are B tier. I want to see what that modern-day jiu-jitsu does against an A tier MMA fighter. Moving on. Tale of the tape. What's up, Eric? Who do you think wins the grappling battle between Wiley and Rose? Should the fight go to the ground? The fight probably will not go to the ground, but if Rose was smart, she would test Zhang on the ground. I would definitely be looking to test her to see what she's got, because I mean, honestly, I don't really think I've seen Wiley Zhang fight on the ground too much, if at all, other than when she has somebody hurt and she's ground and pounding them. Rose has some excellent submissions, man. Very sneaky off her back as well. So anywhere on the ground that this fight takes place, I would give Rose the advantage, top or bottom. So I'm very interested to see what Zhang has to offer. MC, hey there, do you think Masvidal can win this time against Usman? If so, what can he do to outmatch Usman's grappling? Make no mistake, Jorge Masvidal is an excellent grappler. He's an excellent grappler. That's why that fight was so boring. Because not that they stalemated each other, but Jorge did just enough to prevent Usman from doing anything significant in the grappling exchanges. Jorge landed not a lot of shots, but he landed some clean shots on the feet. And Usman's chin held up, kind of rolled with the punches a little bit. They were short shots on the inside, but they were good shots nonetheless. And I think that Jorge's biggest problem in that fight was maybe not his grappling or striking or lack thereof, but his footwork. He really needed to get away from that cage. And I don't exactly have the answers on what he should have done in terms of his footwork, but that's where the problem was. That I could recognize, is that Usman just would not let him off the fence no matter what. Even when they were at medium to long range, Usman was taking the center of the octagon. So Masvidal really needs to work on his lateral movement for this fight. He needs to be in the center of the octagon at all times. If at any point he gets backed up against the fence, Usman has the advantage in that exchange automatically. So that's what Masvidal needs to work on, and he has a full training camp this time. So I think this fight will be different. Make no mistake about it. I think this fight will go differently. Whether or not he will win, I can't say, but it should be different. What else do we got? Marco Sweeney, what's up, my friend? Another one from Yusuf. Is Shevchenko one of the best strikers in UFC today? I feel she is overlooked due to gender. You know what? That's an interesting point. And a little YouTube insight here. I made a video about Kyrgyzstani fighters not too long ago where Valentina Shevchenko was the highlight of that. And it was right before she fought. I forgot who she was fighting. But anyway, I dropped that video right before she fought. And usually when you drop a video about somebody who's about to fight, it really pleases the YouTube algorithm. And, that video gets some traction. Spoiler alert, that video got zero traction. And It is what it is. You have some hits and you have some misses in the YouTube game, but it just really surprised me because Valentina Shevchenko is fucking legit. She's one of the most dominant champions in history. In history. And I'm not talking in terms of title defenses or whatnot, because there are more champions that have more title defenses than her. But when you look at the way she wins her fights, it's usually by finish, except against Liz Carmouche or whatever. But and you look at her division, and it's just like, man, who even stands a chance against her? So yeah, I do think that she's criminally underrated. Is she one of the best strikers in the UFC? I don't know about that. She's very well rounded though. She's got grappling, she's got striking. Her Muay Thai is superb. But there's a lot of good strikers in the UFC. You can maybe fit her into the top 10, maybe the top 10, but I don't know about the best. And that's got nothing to do with her gender or anything, but there's just a lot of excellent Muay Thai guys in the UFC right now. So yes. Khalil Roman. Do you think Tony has another title run in him? And if he wins versus Benny, who would you want to see him matched up against in the future? If he wins against Benny, I guess that's short for Benil. That makes sense. Yeah, I think he definitely has the potential to beat Benil Dariush. He can hurt him on the feet. He can submit him on the ground. Dariush is well-rounded himself, but I think Tony is more well-rounded. To answer your question, no, I don't think he has another title run in him. I think his secret sauce has been, they found the secret formula, that people know how to beat Tony. And he's just so hittable, man. He's just so hittable. If you can avoid his offense and last the full 5 rounds or 3 rounds or however many rounds it is, you should outpoint him. You should outscore him because he just allows too much to be done to him. He allows his durability to carry him and his cardio and just his physical abilities, which is a shame because he's one of the most skilled strikers, one of the most skilled grapplers in the lightweight division. And that is the marquee division of the UFC, guys. That is like the best or one of the best divisions in terms of skill. And it's like, why do you let yourself get hit so much when you have the knowledge and you have the technique to avoid it, And if he doesn't put you away, he's going to lose. He's going to get outpointed. He's not a point fighter. He's a finisher, and I respect that. But that's a formula that's been discovered already in the UFC. It's very akin to Nate Diaz. It's very difficult for Nate Diaz to win by decision. He has to be leagues ahead of you in terms of skill to win on the point battle. And let me know if you disagree with that because yeah, that's just how I see the rest of Tony's career going. He definitely has a lot of great fights still left in him, but I definitely don't see him winning a title. Thomas asks, does Ben have the power for a KO? I do think he has the power for a KO, but I don't think he has the technique. I'm sure you watched the video, How Good is Ben Askren Striking? He has decent power. He's a strong guy. He's a world-class athlete, even though he doesn't look it. But he needs to facilitate that power with technique. You got to get really, really lucky in order to land a haymaker that knocks somebody out. Francesco Genovese asks, how much I love hopping into an AMA after a beast mode grueling training session. What is up, my jiu-jitsu bro? Francesco, it's always good to see you, my friend. I'm glad you could make it to the live chat. Funny you should mention the jiu-jitsu. I've got a couple tournaments coming up at the end of April. April 25th, I think, is the first one. And then first week of May, got a Grappling Industries tournament. It's going to be my first tournament as a brown belt. I got my brown belt in jiu-jitsu last summer, 2020. Summer of 2020. And then obviously, we had COVID-related stuff. I could barely train that year, let alone go compete. There just wasn't many competitions around because of the pandemic. So this will be my first competition as a brown belt. And I'm going to just try to get as many competitions as I can in as a brown belt. One, because brown belts compete for free in a lot of tournaments, which is awesome. Nothing worse than paying like $80 to enter into a tournament, cutting a little bit of weight, and then going there and losing. So at least now I compete for free. But yeah, I competed a good amount as a purple belt. Didn't compete a lot as a blue belt. I think I only did 2 tournaments as a blue belt. And as a white belt, I did 0 tournaments. Those of you thinking of doing jiu-jitsu tournaments, please compete as a white belt. It is the best time to compete. There are, out of all the jiu-jitsu belts in the world, white belt is most abundant. So you're going to get a lot of matches in, you're going to get a lot of experience, and you're going to get those tournament butterflies out real quick. I still get tournament butterflies. Why? Because I haven't competed enough. I didn't compete at all as a white belt. Stupid. Compete as a white belt. All right. Yusuf, rank from 3 to 1 best boxers in the UFC. I think that Glover Teixeira's hands are criminally underrated. For a guy that's primarily a boxer and ranked as highly as he is for as long as he's been, you'd think that more people would comment on his boxing skills. So he's a very good boxer. If you're talking kickboxer, there's a lot of great kickboxers out there. But Glover Teixeira was the first one that popped in my head. So yeah, Glover Teixeira. Calvin Kattar is also one of the best boxers. And if you include Calvin Kattar on that list, you got to include Max Holloway, who absolutely destroyed him. So there's my 3. Teixeira, Kattar, and Holloway. Nadim Ataya. Hello. What's up, my friend? Khalil Roman asks, early predictions for the new lightweight belt. I'm pulling for my jiu-jitsu brethren, Charles Oliveira, but I think Chandler's going to win that fight. I think he's either going to knock him out or he's going to shut him down on the ground with some good wrestling. So, yeah, I think Chandler's going to be the next lightweight champion, believe it or not. Francesco Genovese asks, what do you think of Marvin Vettori's performance against Kevin Holland? Do you think it is enough for a rematch against Adesanya, or would he need another convincing win against the top 5? Me and Al were talking about this in the podcast, if you want to get a more in-depth opinion about that, but I'll skim over it. Marvin Vettori, he played the smart game, and I don't blame him because he took the fight on short notice just like Kevin Holland did. And when Kevin Holland has such a glaring weakness like his takedown defense, as we saw, it's hard not to play that game. So it didn't exactly impress me, but I completely understand why he did it. I think he needs to fight one more time before he gets that rematch against Adesanya. Peter Teba. Hello, my friend. Who do you think will win Poirier versus McGregor 3? I'm still going to pick McGregor because a motivated McGregor is scary, especially a motivated McGregor coming off a loss. But I'm way, way, way less confident in that pick than I was for McGregor Poirier 2. McGregor Poirier 2, I was like, yeah, McGregor's going to knock him out. Because Poirier's so hittable, man. He gets hit in every fight. He gets rocked in every fight. And you cannot play that game against McGregor. But I don't know what it was. I don't know if Poirier rolled with the punches a bit. I don't know if he was able to take some of the sting off of McGregor's punches by kicking his leg. I'm sure he did. But McGregor's shots did not put Poirier down in that second fight like I thought that they would. I thought for sure if McGregor gets hands on Poirier, it's over. I severely underestimated Poirier's chin in that second fight. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe there was something that I didn't see. Maybe there was a reason that McGregor didn't have enough pop on his shots to put down Dustin. I still think that McGregor has the power advantage going into this third fight. He's going to be wary of that leg kick, of that calf kick. He's going to be a little bit more wary of the takedown, even though he did a good job of getting back to his feet off of Poirier's shot. McGregor definitely won that first round in the second fight. He rocked Poirier at one point, man. You can't look past that fact. So I do think that McGregor still wins this fight, but I'm gonna be biting my nails and really reassessing that come fight week. We'll see. Nadeem asks, kind of an out there question. Be my guest, man. You can ask any out there questions you want. That's why we have these AMAs. Francis versus Jones, who do you think wins? And your thoughts on the $10 million bargain by Jones to fight him? I'm a little bit out of the loop about that $10 million bet, but I think Francis takes it. Francis impressed me more than he's ever impressed me before in his fight against Stipe. My biggest criticism of Francis Ngannou going into the Stipe rematch was that he hasn't made any visible improvements in his fights. What was his issue against Stipe in the first fight? He came out too heavy, he blew his wad, and he got tired. And then he didn't have anything else to offer Stipe as he got ragdolled. And then in the Lewis fight, he was just too inactive. Just wasn't doing enough. He wasn't pulling the trigger. In the Rosenstrike, Kane, and Blades fights, he was pulling the trigger, but it seemed like he was going too hard again. It seemed like he was blowing his wad in the first round, and he was throwing undisciplined, crazy haymakers in those fights. And that's what I thought was going to happen again in the rematch with Stipe, and it's just not what happened. He was smart. He was calculated. His technique was crisp. He threw in leg kicks. Did he throw in a takedown as well? I think he took Stipe down. He showed a supreme well-roundedness that I didn't know he was capable of. And in a matchup with Jones, when you have a championship-level fighter like Jones who's that well-rounded, if you are not of comparable skill, you're going to have issues, no matter how big you are. And now that I see that Ngannou's skills are improving, that he is taking this seriously, that he is being more strategic in his fights, I'm less confident that Jon Jones can win that fight. So when you have two men of comparable skill and one is bigger than the other, you got to go with the bigger man. So I'm going to pick Mr. Ngannou for that fight. Combat Study says must picks for Saturday. I'm not sure what you're asking me. Are you asking me about the fights this Saturday? Or are you asking me about the fight picking contest? The fight picking contest is for UFC 261, so we got time to make our picks on that. In terms of the fights this Saturday, let's pull them up. Let's take a gander. All right, let me put it up on the screen for y'all. All right. Whitaker versus Gastelum. I like that matchup, man. We spoke about it in the podcast with Mr. Aldrich Warner. This is an interesting one. You got the blitzing karate guy versus the technical brawler. These two are going to engage. They are definitely going to throw some punches at each other. I've got Whitaker. I'm going to pick Whitaker for this fight. I think he's got the cleaner technique. He's got more power. And Gastelum hasn't necessarily impressed me in his last few fights. Even in his win over Ian Heinisch, I wasn't terribly impressed. Jeremy Stephens versus Drakkar Klose. Drakkar Klose is game, dude. He's game. But Beneil Dariush finished him. I think Jeremy Stephens definitely has the power to finish him. Is Jeremy Stephens in the prime of his career anymore? No. That's the one thing working against Jeremy Stephens here. He's not a spring chicken anymore. He's been fighting for a long time. But I still think he has what it takes to beat Mr. Drakkar Klose. And then the third most interesting matchup of the evening, Andrei Arlovski versus Chase Sherman. I don't know what to think about Andrei Arlovski anymore, man. He doesn't seem to be improving in any significant way throughout his past couple fights. I mean, that rear naked choke loss to the Englishman, I was very disappointed in him for that loss. He kind of just took it. Like, the guy didn't even have any hooks in or anything. He just sat there and got choked. And he hasn't looked stellar in his stand-up performance either. He's been outpointed in many of them. Chase Sherman, he's not a world beater, but he's got power, man. He's a big dude. I'm going to go with Chase Sherman. And then the other ones are not bad fights, but nothing crazy. Juan Espino, Ultimate Fighter winner, versus Alexander Romanov. That is an interesting matchup. Both men are undefeated in the UFC, if I'm not mistaken. I like that matchup. That's a good heavyweight matchup. Very interesting. Both got very good ground game. Might cancel each other out. You might see these guys going toe-to-toe. I like it. Yeah, that's about it for that card. And this card is just wild, man. I mean, 3 title fights. Come on. Does anybody know if Jessica Andrade dropped out of the fight? I heard something this morning. I read something on Joanne Calderwood's Instagram or Twitter or whatever it was, saying that Joanne's now fighting in UFC 261. She took Andrade's place. I don't know if that was a rumor. If you remember, Shevchenko and Calderwood were supposed to fight a while back, but Calderwood had to drop out due to injury, and that's how she ended up fighting Maya. Be interested to see if that's true or if that's a rumor. Uriah Hall versus Chris Weidman. Anthony Smith versus Jimmy Crute. The feature prelim, Cowboy Oliveira versus Randy Brown. Yeah, prelims aren't bad. But that main card, dude, it doesn't get much better than that in terms of main cards. So, yep. It's going to be a fun weekend. All right, let's move on to some more questions here. Gus Fring, do you think MMA will be included in the Ali Act? If so, how would it change MMA? That's an interesting question. I'm not familiar with the specifics of the Ali Act, but from what I understand, it has a lot to do with fighter pay. and fighters getting paid and compensated properly. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is the basic idea of the Ali Act, which is for boxing. It could be a good thing for the fighters. It's definitely going to be a good thing for the fighters. I want to see the fighters get paid more and compensated more and given options. You know, the UFC is notorious for some sleazy business practices and really manipulating these guys into fighting the people that they want them to fight. But in the same instance, it might be a bad thing for the fans because MMA fans are really spoiled with their matchups. We usually get the matchups that we want. And it's because a lot of times the UFC caters to what we want. They cater to what we want because it will make them the most money. So when the UFC is catering to the fans, the UFC is going to do some things to manipulate the fighters into booking the fights that they want. So we might not see as many good matchups anymore. We might see some more mismatches. Who knows? But I don't want to take anything away from fighters. You know, I don't want to say like they're ducking each other or that they're taking the path of least resistance. I'm sure that happens sometimes, but yeah, it could be interesting. And I know John Fitch and Kung Lee and a bunch of other former fighters are leading the charge in that regard. So in that lawsuit against the UFC, we'll see what happens. Guys, I got 13, 14, 15 people in the chat right now. Only 8 likes. Give me some love. Give me some love. While I find my place. Got a lot of questions right now. James Doe says, Stipe Miocic, is he going to be champ again? No, I do not think he will be champ again. He's towards the end of his career. I think he's got a couple good fights, a couple good money fights left in him. But I don't think he's going to be champ again. There we go. There's some likes. Thank you, everybody. Nadim says, do you think if Tony loses his next 2 fights in a row that they'll cut him from the UFC? Yes. I mean, I wouldn't put it past the UFC to cut him if he loses his next fight. Who knows? It's less likely, but still, wouldn't put it past him. Tony's got his back up against the wall. I'm going to try to get through these questions, guys. I got to get off at about, I would say 1:15 Eastern time. It's 12:48 right now, so I got work later. But I'm going to try to get through these questions. MC, what's your take on sparring in striking sports based on what Max Holloway has claimed and also adding the health risks to the education? I think that's supposed to say. Yes. In the context of Max Holloway, the guy knows how to fight already. So he doesn't need to get in those hard sparring rounds anymore. He just needs to make sure that the reflexes are sharp for fight day. And there's a number of different ways that you can do that without getting hit in the head. If you're just starting out, you need to focus on technique. Once you get to that, like, not intermediate level, but like right on the cusp of intermediate, you need to get in those hard striking battles, those hard sparring rounds. Because you have enough skill to be able to intelligently defend yourself. But you also haven't built up that reaction time, that ability to recognize when the punches are coming, how they're coming, from what range they're coming at you from, against a guy who's going 100%. Because it's different. It's different. When you're pulling on your punches, it's hard to get the timing down perfectly. It's hard to get the range down perfectly because you know that the guy in front of you is not trying to knock you out. So you may even be eating some of those shots on purpose because you know that they're not going to be knockout shots. But the problem is if you do those hard sparring rounds in the beginning, when you know no defense, you're going to take a lot of unnecessary punishment, and there's nothing you can do to stop it because you just don't have the rounds in yet. You don't have enough experience. So if you go hard in the beginning, it's going to be bad for you. And if you go hard throughout your entire career, it's going to end badly for you. You got to get those hard sparring rounds in at the intermediate level. I think that's the best time. But I'm not a striking expert either, so there's other people that you can ask about that. Nadim Atayat, who do you think is going to win, Ben or Jake Paul? I knew I'd get that question eventually. I do think that that Jake Paul will beat Mr. Ben Askren. I spent over a week studying Ben Askren and all his fights and every instance that he has ever been forced to strike with somebody. And I am not impressed by his performance, to quote the great GSP. In the context of MMA, he can get by. He's mediocre at best, but he can get by enough to facilitate his grappling and win the fight. But in a contest of hands, excuse me, coughing a lot, allergies. In the context of boxing, I just don't think he takes it. And I know Jake Paul is inexperienced, he's sloppy, he's an asshole, and he's not a real fighter at the end of the day. But he is athletic, and he's got power. And he's been training specifically in boxing longer than Ben Askren has been training specifically in boxing. So I'm going to take Mr. Jake Paul. Get comfortable here. Okay, what's next? James Doe. That's a repeat question, my bad. Combat study. Looks like he's speaking a different language. I'm sorry, my friend, I do not speak that language. Peter Teba. However you pronounce your last name, I apologize. Do you think Nate Diaz deserves to be called a good boxer? Because I don't think so. He seems like a terrible boxer to me. All he can do is a 1-2, and his cardio is good. And jiu-jitsu, and good jiu-jitsu with durability. Yes, all those things are true to an extent. Nate has more to offer than just a jab and a cross. He's got a lot of great hooks, actually. He throws punches from weird angles, and the way he sets up his strikes is obviously volume, but a lot of the punches that he throws aren't really to hurt you. They're to kind of open you up, give you a false sense of security. Once you let your guard down a little bit, that's when he hits you with the power. That's when he hits you with crisp technique. All the other shots are set up. It's pitter-patter shots. So I think he's a good boxer. I don't think he's like world class or anything, but I think he's a good boxer, and that it's something that goes well with his style because his durability is so good. He can kind of just stand in front of you and take those shots until he's ready to unload. Combat Study says Diaz only fights from the center line and throws straight punches. Yeah, it doesn't move his head a lot. His prowess is not in the defensive department. Not at all. It's very much an offensively focused strategy. His defensive strategy is just to eat the shots and come forward. Francesco Genovese, lucky you, man. How lucky you are. I recently got my purple belt, but I am waiting to get inside the cage and fight for a year now. So frustrating with this. Yeah, man, I'm not sure where you live, but the pandemic is not making it easy for those of us that train. I'm lucky enough to live in a part of the United States where the rules are a little bit lax. And not to get political here or go on a rant about COVID, but I think that if you're aware of the risks and that you stay away from people that are immunely compromised, you should be able to just do what you want to do. Train if you want to train, and take care of your family in whatever way you need to. But then again, I haven't had any loved ones die from this sort of thing, so maybe I'm a biased opinion. And I understand it's a touchy subject, but the point is, it's been difficult for those of us in the combat sports realm. So hang in there, my friend. Nadim, now I believe that Chandler's grappling is solid, but I think he'd be better on the feet against Oliveira. Who do you think would win? And can we get a how good is Chandler's grappling video? Yeah, that may be in the works, my friend. Chandler is an excellent grappler. Yeah, he's got the power, but let's not underestimate Oliveira. Oliveira's striking has come a long way. Oliveira is a very good striker. The one knock against him, I would say, is his durability, though. I don't think he's that durable. And against a power puncher like Michael Chandler, I think you're right. I think Chandler's best chances of winning are on the feet. Combat Study says Poirier is one of the best boxers or is a best boxer in the UFC. Offensively, I can agree. Defensively, he gets hit a lot, man. Like I mentioned before, he gets hit a lot. We don't have too many defensively focused fighters in the top tier. Very few. Peter says, I searched for the best boxers in the UFC, and I was surprised to see a man named Nate Diaz there. He's a brawler and has no technique. He depends on his durability and cardio to win most of his fights. Again, I disagree with you, my friend. I think he's got very good technique. But again, his defense is not the focus, and his offense is pretty niche. It's pretty niche. Another one from Mr. Genovese. Hell, I would fight in boxing. I would fight in Muay Thai. I would fight in submission grappling, BJJ. Just let me fight already. Yeah. Sounds like you're in lockdown, which is rough, man. I can only imagine. If you got a family member that you live with that likes to train, just try to get in as many rounds with them. If not, just focus on strength and conditioning. It's the best you can do right now. Combat Study. I want to see Poirier versus Diaz. Yeah, that fight was supposed to happen a while back. Fell through, though. Poirier had to get surgery on the hip. That would be interesting, though. Diaz is fighting Leon Edwards. How about that, guys? That's bizarre. I did not expect that matchup. And the winner fights for the title next. I could see that in the case of Leon Edwards, but Nate? I don't know, man. Peter says Masvidal, McGregor, and Garbrandt. I think that's supposed to say. He says those guys are better than Poirier. Garbrandt was a weird one to throw in there. I agree in terms of Masvidal, even McGregor. Got my dogs barking. Be right back. Let me go shut them up. Apologies for that. Got the dogs barking in the background. Drive me nuts. Anyways, where was I? Zid Arjun. Hi, good to see you live. Good to see you, man. I think that you were the one that was asking for the live stream the other day. Combat study. Oliveira out volumes him, trust me. Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I think that Oliveira will definitely land more strikes against Chandler. He's going to land those leg kicks, body kicks, knees, elbows, the whole 9 yards. But can he take one overhand right from Chandler? I doubt it. Oh, man. Still got so many questions left. Guys, if I miss some of your questions, I apologize. I don't have that much time left to answer all of them. If you really have a burning question in your heart, you can do a super chat, and I'll try to get to that one first. If not, I'll just do my best to get through them. Let's answer a question from Combat Mania. How many marks will you give Robert Whittaker's striking, just based on the performances you kind of remember? I think Robert Whittaker's striking is one of the best in middleweight, for sure. He's got somewhat of a Lyoto Machida style, you know. He's got that karate in and out with a very aggressive blitz. But as we saw in his fight against Adesanya, he's vulnerable in that blitz, man. He's not a bad defensive fighter. He's not getting hit constantly like your Nate Diaz's or your Tony Ferguson's. But he is vulnerable in these small windows where he attacks. And the same can be said for anybody. But for him, once you get his timing down and you can make him run face first into your fist, it's interesting. I'm trying to remember his fights against Yoel Romero. Because Romero, there was some ground exchanges, and Whittaker got hurt in, what was it, the second fight? Damn, I'm trying to remember. But those were two interesting ones. In order to give a perfectly fleshed out opinion to this question, I would want to go back and watch those two fights. Romero 1 and 2. What else we got? Francesco says, am I the only one who thinks Poirier versus McGregor 3 is just bullshit? Bullshit in what way? Bullshit that the fight is even happening? I mean, Poirier wanted it. Both men want it to happen. So it's hard to argue if both men want it. If Poirier wanted to fight for the title next, and they rebooked the McGregor match in spite of that, now there's some bullshit going on. But yeah, if both guys are game, then why not? Zid Arjun, what are your thoughts on Islam Makhachev? Josh Thompson, who used to train with them, says that he is a better wrestler than Khabib. If that's true, don't you think everyone at lightweight is dead? I'll be honest with you, dude. Makhachev hasn't impressed me too much. He's had some good wins. The Drew Dober win was probably the best one yet, or one of the best ones yet. But I want to see him in there. I want to see him in there against a killer, like a killer. The thing that was so scary about Khabib is no matter who you put him up against, he made them look like shit. The best fighters in the world he made look like dog shit. And Makhachev's fights have been competitive. You know, he hasn't ran through anybody. He hasn't had anybody run through him. His fights they've been match made pretty well. I think he has potential to be a champion. And I think, especially based off of where he comes from and who he trains with, he could be one of the best. And I'm not sure what his record is right now. I'm pretty sure he's undefeated as well. But yeah, I want to see him against those top 5 guys. See how he does before I really claim that he's the next Khabib. These two guys seem to be talking to each other. Francesco says, to me, it should have been Poirier versus Oliveira for the belt and Chandler versus Gaethje for the next contender. But by the way, to me, Chandler commits suicide going to the ground against Oliveira. Oliveira does stand a better chance on the ground. That's a pun. But yeah, I still have Chandler winning that fight. Poirier versus Oliveira would have been excellent for the belt, but Poirier didn't want it. Gaethje versus Chandler, I like that fight too. Nadim says, Venom jersey or Reebok jersey? Oh, man, from what I'm hearing, the Venom thing is working out pretty well. No complaints from anybody. But in terms of how they look, oh, man, the Venom gear just looks a little tacky to me. I don't know. I liked the Reebok gear better. Call me plain Jane or whatever, but I just like the simplified Reebok gear better than the Venom stuff. It's got like all these weird pointy designs on it. I don't know. I'm not digging it. Lucas Acevedo, who is the most unorthodox fighter in the UFC? The most unorthodox. My pick for that is Ryan Hall. When you look at his style, it's just odd. So he's a jiu-jitsu guy, which isn't out of the ordinary. But how he sets up his jiu-jitsu and how he forces his jiu-jitsu upon others is odd. He's got a very new school style of jiu-jitsu. A lot of leg locks, a lot of positions that are the meta in jiu-jitsu, but less known in MMA. And the way he gets you to go to the ground with him is he throws spinning hook kick after spinning hook kick after spinning hook kick. And that is a very wide and rangy attack. And the reason he throws that is because he's trying to hit you, one, and he's trying to goad you into closing the distance. And he does that again and again and again. And sometimes those kicks land and hurt people, a la Darren Elkins. And Gray Maynard, I think he did that too as well. And eventually you're going to get frustrated and you're going to close the distance on him. And as soon as you close the distance, he pulls guard. He drops right to his butt and he pulls guard. And you have to make a decision. Am I going to stand here and this could end up potentially being a boring fight and I get booed out of the stadium? Or do I just say fuck it and go to the ground with him and take my chances there? And everybody who has picked option B has lost. And everybody who has picked option A has also lost. It's a very bizarre strategy. And so far it's working for Ryan Hall. So it's very interesting. Keep an eye on Ryan Hall, guys, because he's going to be somebody that we're talking about for a while, as long as the fights keep coming his way. Combat Mania, what do you think about Tom Aspinall, the guy who beat Arlovsky? I think he's pretty good. He's a little bit arrogant, and his win over Arlovsky, the rear naked choke, kind of fortified that arrogance, kind of bolstered it. But I think he's good. He's got heavy hands. He's got good technique. He's a good heavyweight contender. Moonlight covers. I'm from Uzbekistan, and there is only one guy from my country who is Mahmoud Muradov, who recently beat Andrew Sanchez. What is your opinion on him? Can he become a champ? Let's look him up. Mahmoud Muradov. I'm going to have to copy and paste that. Let's look him up because I'm horrible with names. Ah, yes. Yes. Let's pull him up on the big screen. Mahmoud Muradov. He did just beat Andrew Sanchez. He's a good striker, man. Let's look at his record. He's got 25 wins and 6 losses, 17 by knockout, 3 by submission, and 5 by decision. That's a pretty good mix. That is a pretty good mix. Obviously, better striker than anything, but the 3 submissions, nothing to scoff at. 6 losses. 1 by knockout, 3 by submission, 2 by decision. Not afraid to go out on a shield either. Okay, so let's look at his wins in the UFC. Man, he's undefeated for a while now. How many? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 fight win streak. That's impressive. Not going to lie. He's got a win against Andrew Sanchez, flying knee. Damn, I remember that. Got performance of the night. Knockout over Trevor Smith. 3rd round. Performance of the night. And a unanimous decision win against Alessio Di Chirico, who's coming off an impressive win himself over Joaquin Buckley. He's looking good, man. He's looking good. I like it. So to answer your question, yeah, I think he has the potential to be a contender for sure. And I can't wait to see his next fight. Represent Uzbekistan. Where am I? I lost my place. Okay. UFC during, I'm sorry, Nadim says, UFC doing tournaments like Pride and Bellator. Thoughts? I like that it's a merit-based system, but yeah, I don't think it has a place anymore in the UFC. I don't think it would work as well. I think it would, I don't know. That sounds weird to say, but I think it would prevent us from seeing the truly interesting matchups. That's the one bad thing about tournaments is you're kind of locked in place. You can't create those dream matchups like you want. Speaking of, let's talk about the PFL a little bit. They've got some good events coming up. It's been a while since we talked PFL, and they didn't have anything going on in 2020. Now they've got stuff going on. End of April. Let's take a look. Anthony Pettis. We all know this guy, right? He's fighting Clay Collard on the, April 23rd. That should be fun, man. Clay Collard had some wins in the UFC. I don't know why he got cut, or even if he got cut. Maybe he just left the promotion, but that should be an interesting matchup. Guys, if you don't know who Natan Schultz is, pay attention. He is a monster. He's the 2-time lightweight champ of the PFL, and he's always in an exciting fight. I've never seen him in a boring fight. He's got knockouts. He's got submissions. He's fighting Marcin Held, who's a Bellator and UFC veteran and an absolute murderer on the ground. He will heel hook the shit out of you. Polish Power represent. Should be good. And Khabilov, I think it's pronounced. He had that highlight reel flying knee in the PFL. What was it, 2019? And then Lance Palmer. PFL is going to be making some waves this year, especially since they've got Miss Clarissa Shields fighting in June. I'm excited. I'm really excited about that. All right, peeps. We're going to do a few more questions, and then I got to get out of here, unfortunately. I've got work later. Rajarshi. I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name because I'll butcher it. What's up, my dude? Would GSP beat Khabib if his body didn't get weaker due to age? So prime GSP versus prime Khabib. I've answered this question before. I will answer it again. I pick Khabib because he is the bigger man and is of comparable skill. What else we got? Crazy Dragon 19. How does someone beat Sean O'Malley? I want to see him against a wrestler. I don't think he's fought many good wrestlers yet. And I think his legs can still be tested. I know that's something that he was pissed off about, that people were criticizing him for, kick him in the legs. But the low calf kick is something that's good against everybody, not just people with leg problems. So I want to see him fight a good kicker as well. I'd like to see the Marlon Vera rematch, honestly. Tornado HQ, can you do Jan Blachowicz rating video? Yeah, man. Probably next time he fights, I think he's supposed to fight Glover Teixeira next. So it'd be cool to make a video about him, for sure. I got a lot of Polish friends that would love that. Hard Work 305, do you think Usman should be the pound-for-pound number one, considering how mediocre Jones has looked in his last few fights? I think that the same criticisms can be made of Usman in some ways, especially in that fight with Jorge Masvidal. And if you look at Usman's rise to the championship, some of his wins were unimpressive. I'm not going to lie. Until he beat Tyron Woodley, I wasn't overly impressed by Usman. The fight with Covington was amazing. The fight with Burns was amazing. Pound for pound number one. I don't put too much stock in pound for pound ratings, but I wouldn't put him there. Not yet. Not yet. Tom Morris, can Till win a title? How good is his striking grappling video in the future? Possibly. I think Till is one of the best. Certainly one of the best British fighters of all time. He just, his fight against Gastelum was unimpressive. He looked all right against Whitaker. He got some good shots in. Can he win a title? I don't know. I got to see him fight again. Peter says, if Colby and George were to fight, who do you think would win? I'm going to take Colby in that fight. I'm going to take Colby. I know I'm skipping over some people's chats here. I'm just trying to get to the people that I haven't really done too many questions for. I apologize. I'm running out of time here. Lucas Acevedo, who is the best defensive fighter and who is the best offensive fighter in the UFC? Offensively, it's hard to contend with McGregor. McGregor, Adesanya. And what are we talking about? Are we talking about just striking? Are we talking about all of MMA, striking and grappling? I think Jorge Masvidal is defensively one of the best fighters. He shuts down a lot of good offensive fighters. He really does. His fight against Wonderboy was interesting. I had to rewatch that fight when I made the Wonderboy video. Wonderboy was able to drop him at one point, but Wonderboy is also a counter fighter. He's very elusive in his offense and very tricky. So he was frustrating Jorge and making him make mistakes that he doesn't normally make. But I think that Jorge is defensively, in terms of grappling and striking, one of the best fighters in all of MMA right now. Ultimate Fighting Casual. Who gets to fight the next lightweight champion between Gaethje and Poirier? If Poirier wins, without a doubt, it's going to be Poirier to challenge for that title. I think Gaethje needs a really, really impressive win against a really great fighter, or he needs 2 wins. I don't know if he goes right back into the title picture after his loss to Khabib. Yusuf. Is Peter Yan one of the best boxers? He's excellent, man. He's one of the best kickboxers. I don't know if he has the best hands, but he has a good combination of the two, feet and hands. It's Xyloid says, first time here, don't mind me. Welcome, my friend. Welcome. I'm glad you can make it. V. Kendra. I feel like people are underestimating Andrade. Valentina doesn't finish most people. I don't know if I agree with that. Valentina has a lot of finishes on her record. Maya, she was unable to finish, and what's her face? Liz Carmouche, she was unable to finish, but she's got a lot of finishes. I mean, that Jessica Eye knockout was crazy. She has a couple submissions as well. Andrade is good, man. I'm not underestimating Andrade, but I think from a technical standpoint, Valentina is leagues ahead. But Andrade gets by a lot on her toughness and her strength. And you can't play around with that. Valentina needs to take her seriously. V. Kendra also says, Khabib hasn't faced a top-level jiu-jitsu guy. He pulled out or something happened when they were scheduled. I sort of agree and sort of don't, because RDA has excellent jiu-jitsu. That fight was interesting, man. He was in on a guillotine for a second. But in terms of like modern day jiu-jitsu practitioners, no, he hasn't fought the best that the world has to offer in terms of jiu-jitsu. But I'm not trying to take anything away from Khabib. I still think he wins against all the lightweight jiu-jitsu practitioners right now. Last few questions here. Tail of the tape. Oliveira's guard is a dangerous place to be, but not a death sentence, in my opinion. Frankie Edgar was able to take him down and nullify him when they fought. That is an excellent point. As long as you have good jiu-jitsu knowledge and submission knowledge, you can stay safe from the guard and win just by virtue of the position. So that's an excellent point by Tail of the Tape right there. Ultimate Fighting Casual. Cruz, probably the most unorthodox. Yes, in terms of footwork, extremely unorthodox. Brooke Gibrizis. What do you think will be the key for Conor to win against Dustin? And what do you make of his new training videos with creating a sort of hybrid of his Taekwondo style and Muay Thai style? I would say it's more of a boxing style, but yes. The key is to check those leg kicks. Check those leg kicks or get the fuck out of the way of them. And to before these two fight for a third time, I'm going to have to go back and watch both of their fights. What made the difference for Conor in that first fight? I will say he was constantly on offense. He was throwing a lot of kicks. He was throwing a lot of kicks himself. That was probably the main difference between the two fights. Take away psychological warfare and what have you and everything else. The fight itself, what was the most difference? It was the kicks of Conor. Conor used a lot of Taekwondo-style flashy kicks that facilitated his left hand. So he needs to nullify the kicks of Poirier and also use more of his own kicks. And I think that would help him. Excellent question. One more question. Well, let's read this from Mr. Zid Arjun because it looks like a very nice comment. It says, not a question, just to let you know that we appreciate your work. The How Good Is There series and these live Q&As, they are all great. Thank you for being there as that expert that we can share thoughts with. Well, my friend, I'm here to let you know that for all my videos that I make, I don't consider myself an expert. I'm just a martial arts enthusiast and a fan of the sport, and I love engaging with you guys and talking about fights. I started this YouTube just to talk about fights. I'm a dad of 2 kids. I work a full-time job, and I don't have that much time to train. And I've tried my hardest to get my family into MMA to no avail. I try to get my coworkers into MMA to no avail. I have nobody to talk fights with. I started this YouTube channel to talk about fights with other people in the world. I was very specific when I chose the name of this channel, The Fight Dialogue. The dialogue happens between me and you guys, because that's what it's all about, man. It's just being fans. I'm just another fan of the sport. All right, last question. Rajarshi, do you think DC is underrated? I mean, I always find GSP, DJ, Cejudo, and Jones in the GOAT conversation, but DC, I think, is overlooked a little bit. Yeah, DC is overlooked a little bit. And I think part of that stems from his failure to convert in the most important fights of his career, such as in his fights against John Jones and Daniel Cormier, and Stipe Miocic. Sorry, he's Daniel Cormier. He did win one of the fights against Stipe, and he got eye poked in the other. Listen, I get it. I'm not saying he sucks or anything like that. I'm just saying in the fights that would have propelled him into the GOAT status, he lost. And that doesn't not make him the GOAT, but it makes it hard to argue that he's the GOAT, if that makes any sense. So I like DC. I think he's one of the best to ever do it, but those losses are always going to prevent him from being the GOAT. All right, guys. That just about does it today. I really appreciate you guys coming by and talking with me, especially since I completely fucked up the first version of this live chat and had to leave and go fix it, and my dogs were barking, and it was all a mess, and you guys still stuck with me through it. I really appreciate that. A few things. Go check out our Instagram, our Twitter, our Facebook. The links are all in the description. The Discord, join the Discord. Just to talk with us, me and Al, about fights and everything else, and join that fight picking contest so you can win some free merch. Check out the Patreon. It helps out the channel a lot when you do. And yeah, guys, have fun watching the fights this weekend. Thanks so much for watching. Peace.